John, just because it's summer doesn't mean you can sit around on your backside all day.
Skip.
You never take me anywhere.
Skip.
Man, I'm telling you, go paleo. It'll change your life.
Skip.
Don't get stuck with sounds you don't want to hear. Get Spotify Premium free with Vodafone X Music, plus 20 gigs of 4G data for just €20 top-up. Fuel your beats with free Spotify Premium. Search Vodafone X to find out more. For full terms, conditions and limitations, including our fair usage policy, see Vodafone.ie.
Blog Talk Radio.
There's a direct relationship between having the businesses and being in prison. Go find see how many Asians you can find in American prisons. They ain't gonna be in there. But 51% of your prison will be black because blacks don't have any businesses and industries. There's a direct link. Blacks won't practice group economics. Black won't practice group politics. If you don't practice, you're setting yourself up. I told that 5-story building, you're setting yourself to get wiped out. Understand the nature of race, which is economic. If you build the first floor, it's economic. Build your businesses and your industries. Control business and industry, and put that pulls in your money, and hold that money, and practice group economics with it. Arab and Asian money bounces 12 to 13 times what it leaves. Jewish money bounces 18 times. Black folk got to learn how to practice group economics. Black Americans spend every penny they get outside their own community. Then you take the money and the wealth that you get from that first floor and go to the second floor. The second floor is politics. You then take that money on the first floor and you control your politics. Black folk must quit allowing people to tell them to go out and vote. Vote for what? Nobody's going to do anything for black folk in politics. Politics is controlled by money. Major corporations who got the money. That's what controls politics. If you have no money, you have no say-so, you have no benefits coming. So you take your money and you control, and you take your money from the first floor, you buy every politician on the second floor. And any politician you can't buy, you rent or lease them to get what you need. Then once you get the second floor under control with the politician, with your money, then you go to the third floor. The third floor is the police department and the court system. You take your money from the first floor and your politics on the second floor, and you control the court system and the police departments. Then the fourth floor then is media. You then take the money that you generate off the first floor from business and industries, and you go after radio stations, TV stations, newspapers, and cable systems, so that you can now inform and communicate with your own people. Right now, black folk own and control less than 35 thousandths of 1% of the media in the United States. Out of 12,000 radio stations, black folk own about 75, 80. That's all. You own no cable systems. You don't have a daily newspaper. You have nothing of importance. You got about one black TV station. So you can't communicate with your people. You can't inform your people. You can't do anything. You can have Rush Limbaugh and all the rest of the guys talking about racism all day long and bad-mouthing you, and O'Reilly. They can call black folk all kind of names all day long. What are you going to do? You can't respond. You can't communicate with your own people because you don't have an economic base. 51% of all the prisoners in the United States are black people. You only make up 12% of the population. That's no accident. It's because you don't control the economics and the politics. And they're going to go after the weakest people they can get their hands on to incarcerate them. That's the black folk. And what are you going to do in response to them when they over-incarcerate you? You're going to go out and have a march, a demonstration. We're going to march. March for what? Who cares? Marches, they never changed anything.
If white immigrants can come to this country 50 years ago with nickels and dimes and no education, and come here and pool their little nickels and dimes and no education, and set up little stores, develop these stores into larger stores, develop this into an industry which creates job opportunities for whites. Since Lincoln was supposed to have freed the black man 100 years ago, and today the black man, according to the government economist, has spending power of $20 billion per year. We feel that with the black man spending $20 billion a year, not setting up any businesses, not creating any industry, not creating any job opportunities for his own kind, he's not in a moral position to point the finger today at the white man and tell the white man that he's discriminating against him for not giving him a job in factories that he himself set up. If the black man has $20 billion, and these so-called Negro leaders are such geniuses that they can integrate white restaurants and integrate white factories and force themselves into that which the white man has set up, they should use this same ingenuity to show the black people how to pool our wealth and set up something of our own. And then we won't have to force our way into his anymore. One more thing I would like to point out concerning what he said about 125th Street. We don't waste our time on 125th Street, but you can reach more people in the street who want to change than you can in the bourgeoisie society, the bourgeoisie church, and the bourgeoisie circles. Our program is directed toward the man in the street. So we spend our time in the street, and what we do with that man, instead of trying to change the white man in your mind, make you accept us, we change the mind of the black man and make him accept himself. And as soon as he accepts himself, he'll solve his own problem. He won't be trying to force himself into your factory and into your bedroom and into your kitchen.
He's a Nigerian billionaire and founder of the Dangote Group. His company operates in Nigeria and other African countries. He has an estimated net worth of $18.6 billion. He's Aliko Dangote, and here are his top 10 rules for success.
Well, you have to be a good leader, you have to be a very good listener, you have to listen to people, you have to also listen to quite a lot of advice. You have to make sure that it is not what you tell people to do. You have to, crack your brains and have quite a lot of what you call advice from your own team. It has to be a teamwork, because there's no way you can make it as a person without a good team. And you must be consistent. When you try a business and you start, you might have hiccups here and there, but it does not mean that that business is not going to work. There must be challenges. In fact, what I keep saying is that life without challenges is very, very boring. So if you have challenges, you just have to know how to work out or how to work around these challenges, and you will be successful once you are consistent. What business doesn't like is for you to try something, and then once you have one or two problems, now you want to change and move into another business. That doesn't work in business at all. The way that the data is, you need to have a lot of information at your fingertips so that it will allow you to make decisions and, to also take the right, decisions. What I was doing 5 years ago, if I try to do them without the automation that we have today, it's just not going to happen at all. Well, the problem with some of our younger generation today, they just want to jump and see themselves up there, overnight. It doesn't really happen. What you need to do is to be very, very focused as a person and be dedicated to whatever that you are doing. It is not really good for you to now go and try something, then after a month you just say, no, it doesn't work. You jump into something else. I think you need to be very, very focused in what you are doing. Once you believe in what you are doing, you see, you should not take your either business or job as something that you must do. Okay, you must take it as it's part of your hobby. If it's part of your hobby, then you do it better. You always have to think ahead. In business, sometimes what is good today might not be good tomorrow. So you need to, look at it. If you have the means, there's nothing really like diversification. Sometimes you do quite a lot of diversification, and then you consolidate before you move forward. You cannot just keep expanding, because sometimes when you overexpand, it can cause a lot of crisis also. So you need at least once in a while to consolidate and, forward. When you look at it, it is really not common for somebody to leave banking and go and start something totally new, especially in an area of events management, because at the time that she left the bank, which was 10 years ago, nobody thought that something like events management will actually succeed. But I mean, it is good. That is really what you call entrepreneurship, and also a vision. She had a vision, and she is able to actualize our vision. It's just like myself. I remember one time I went to address a retreat of First Bank of Nigeria, and I was telling First Bank of Nigeria, this is where Dangote is going to be in the next 5 years. I mean, we are not really that big at the time that I went there to address them, and I'm sure they couldn't really believe what I was saying then. But I remember at a point the MD said that, well, they are really shocked at how we actually been able to make it and also actualize our vision. So I think with this thing that she has done, I personally believe it is just beginning of the journey, because she has a vision, and I'm sure if she continues to do it, this can turn into another mega business, because like what I always say, look, for an entrepreneur, there are no boundaries. Not only are there no boundaries, you can actually excel much more than your own expectation, and that's really what I expect of an entrepreneur to be. Not to just say, okay, fine, I have a vision, and only achieve that your vision. You need to have a vision and a mission so that you can actually actualize it and also excel. I mean, I had somebody who came to interview me one time, and I told him that, yes, 3, 4, 5 years ago, I never ever expected myself to be on the Forbes list. But right now, the vision that I have and also my own mission is actually to be on top of the line, not even where I am today. And that's really how, a visionary person should be. Hard work. I believe that, we're a very focused company. We don't really go into things that we don't understand. Any business that I don't understand it well, I don't do it at all. And that's really why, why we're successful. To be an entrepreneur and also to be a visionary person, you have to actually be very, very bold. You have to be ready to take calculated risk, not just any risk. You have to take a calculated risk, and you have to think big. If you think small, you will always remain small in life. The way that we operate as a company, especially in Dangote, is like what I said, we have a vision. That vision, we have a strategy of how we are going to achieve the vision, which we do normally over a period of 5 years. Like today, we know where we are going. Even this investment that I announced of $400 million here, I didn't just sit down on my own and just say it. It is part of our strategic plan to invest in Kenya. To be serious, if you want to be the next Dangote, is that you have to have a very big heart. You have to take quite a lot of risk, calculated risk. First of all, you have to make sure that you are honest. You must make sure that you don't destroy the name, because your name is very important. That's the most valuable asset that you have going forward. Because if you don't have a good name, even the banks, doesn't matter how big you are, they're not going to touch you. True. At all. So you must make sure that you have a very, very good name. And number 3, you have to make sure that you say that, look, nothing is impossible. Once you say that, yes, nothing is impossible, it means that you can actually achieve that target.
Thank you so much for watching. I made this video because Neri Abba asked me to. So if there's a famous entrepreneur that you want me to profile next, leave it in the comments below and I'll see what I can do. I'd also love to know which of Aliko Dangote's top 10 rules had the biggest impact on you. Leave it in the comments. I'm going to join in the discussion. Thank you so much for watching. Continue to believe, and I'll see you soon.
All right, today's It's My House is titled Reparations in Plain Sight. Live stream number 619-768-2945. Just played a clip, which you heard him speaking of, which he's the wealthiest, at least on record, wealthiest black person on the planet, Aliko Dangote, out of Nigeria. Plenty of information online about him. But now he has 10 rules of success, I guess, in no particular order. And somebody asked him the questions. But I guess it's a little pet hobby of mine, studying billionaires. There are over 7 billion people on a planet, and there's 2,208 billionaires. Out of that 7 billion plus, 2,208 are billionaires, and some of those people are what we Americans call black. And he's not the only. There are other African billionaires as well, and I'm gonna give him a lot more play this year, as well as the other black billionaires, and not the ones that people, at least the Americans, always spout out, Oprah or Jordan, but or Jay-Z or somebody like that. But the ones that a lot of people don't talk about. However, I might have to use Oprah and Jordan as an example today in Reparations in Plain Sight. Now, there's nothing nothing special about the billionaires I've studied. Some of you, I'm sure some of you have studied too. And I'm going to look at billionaires because it's a really, really small club. Less than 2,500 people and you got over 7 billion people, approaching 8 billion people on the planet. So what are they doing, particularly the black ones, that the average Joe citizen might not be doing? And there's a book that you can get a big clue in. It's called, I think it's called The Blue Ocean. And in The Blue Ocean, I'm just going to, go through it real quick. There are 2 concepts to pick up in business: red oceans and blue oceans. Red oceans are business environments or industries that are highly competitive and regulated. The real operative word here is regulated. Insurance insurance agencies, insurance companies, highly regulated. Matter of fact, they've got more money than banks. I think that's the only national industry that is not federally regulated. Insurance commissioners, and that's how powerful they are. But insurance companies, insurance industries were highly regulated. Banking is highly regulated. Bringing it down, real estate to a high degree is regulated, particularly in your larger cities. New York, L.A., probably St. Louis, Los Angeles, San Antonio, Miami, all those places. Because in those places, the larger the population of the city, the more regulation there is. So at one time, you can get wealthy just by renting rooms. But then as those cities got larger, it's got to be, you got to have a certificate of occupancy. It's got to be this, that, regulated. And now you can be a small landlord getting started, just renting rooms. But if you don't follow the rules and regulations, you can meet some heavy fines and get put out of business. Or if you can recover from it, then you just have to. I know a guy that he had a tenant that wasn't paying rent. This happened in Washington, D.C. So he got mad and he went in there and took the toilet out. There's a rule against that in Washington, D.C. And in most major cities they have it. And he got fined, I think, like at least $20,000 for that, just by going in and removing his toilet from his house. From his rental unit. Can't do that in D.C. Now, you might be able to do that in Podunk, Idaho, population 100 people. Might, mind you, because you once again, you need to check the rules and regulations and zoning and housing in whatever particular neck of the woods. But, that's regular. Tiny houses, which is a matter of fact, has been a trend, man, for the last 10 years or so. Maybe not quite 10, but I'm going to put it at 10. And it's still going strong. Is a lot of the people who, and it's still in pioneer phase. And that's the operative word too, pioneer. They looked at, if I build it myself and it's on wheels or on skids, it's not classified as real estate. Because once it's classified as real estate, and even the word house is a very regulated word. Because a lot of people, they go into the permit office, I want to build a tiny house. And the moment you say house, it can be tiny, microscopic, large, but the moment you say house, all the regulators know is here is typically rules and regulations in your mid-sized and large areas. And other areas of the United States, you can basically build without a permit. And we're talking about a regular-sized house. So the common denominator I've found with a lot of people who become billionaires, they're in the blue ocean. They're in a field that has little or no competition, which means little or no government regulation. And that's where the reparations within plain sight is, if you have those antennas up for that. You have to look, and I also want to add in, particularly in this age of mass communication via the internet, there's a whole bunch, not just internet, there's a lot of jobs that are being created now that are virtually not on the radar. And when I say not on the radar, we're talking about not on the radar of local, state, and federal government. A few years ago, there was no such job as a social media manager. Those jobs exist now. I don't know if you can get a college degree in that. If we go back 10, 15 years, you couldn't get a degree in renewable energy. There's a few colleges now, I think, that offer a degree in renewable energy, things like solar, wind, that type of stuff, rainwater technologies and all that type of stuff. It's still, renewables is still in the pioneer phase. And that's where a lot of these people became billionaires. They were in a blue ocean, something that had little or no government regulation. Matter of fact, let's take Oprah, because a lot of people bring her up. I mean, ever heard of a talk show host getting arrested? Ever heard of a talk show host that had to get a business license? Okay. Basically, Oprah, she was taken in by or partnered up with, I don't know what's the right term, with the King brothers, who were syndicators of television shows. And, they bankrolled her television show, all those years. And now she's got her own network. But seriously, have you ever known anybody? I mean, you can get arrested for spitting on the sidewalk in a lot of places. You can get fined or even arrested for littering, throwing down a bubble gum wrapper on the street or whatever. Typically, a cop will give you a break on that if you pick it up, if they catch you doing it. But a talk show host, basically, you can do that on television because TV, terrestrial TV, is regulated. So you might not be able to say certain things, but to my knowledge, correct me, there's no license required, no type of government regulation to be a talk show host. All right, now, the King brothers took care of selling commercials, all that. That's advertising. There's some kind of regulation with that, but it's not, a real strangling regulation like something in banking. Or even housing, because you got to keep up with local compliance, even on the local level, all the ordinances. Because now, in some places, there are people who have been arrested for growing vegetables, growing food on their front lawn. All right? At one time, there was no regulation for that. But in some cities, now like Tulsa, Oklahoma, you can't do it. You can still grow it in your backyard, but you can't grow it in your front yard. And Tulsa's it's like a mid-sized market. It's not a big market. It's not in the top 10, 15, 25 largest cities in the United States. Now, you can go to Boley, Oklahoma, or Taft, Oklahoma, and do it, but 45 minutes to an hour away in Tulsa, Oklahoma, same state, can't do it. So, reparations in plain sight is look for, there's a lot of opportunity. Typically, they're disguised as problems, and a lot of people have not flooded the market yet. Some of these markets are being invented as we speak. Hobbyists, there's a bunch of hobbyist videos on YouTube. A lot of people who tinker around with this, that, or other, like electric cars, not really regulated yet. The late Sam Walton, Walmart. When he started Walmart, he was basically in something in Podunk, I forgot the name, Bentonville, Arkansas. Very little government regulation. Was it difficult to get into business? You know, if you had to pay, you know, your peddler's fee, it was nominal. And even today in 2018, to get a business license in most places, including your larger cities, business license really doesn't cost that much. All right. Mark Zuckerberg, you know, now, prior to them going public, no, because going public, that's highly regulated. But he had made his money. He had become a billionaire via Facebook, because all Facebook is a glorified website. And to start a website, you do not, to my knowledge, there's no government regulation to start your own website. To my knowledge. All right. Now, if you're going to monetize it, depending on what neck of the woods you're in, you might have to get a license, you know, if you're going to use it as a home-based business. But then you got to, and there are places where, matter of fact, I'm not going to name the cities, but there's some large cities that do have a licensing fee if you're going to have a home-based business. But I haven't heard of anybody getting arrested. I heard of one guy who got fined for selling books out of his house, mail-order books. But it was a nominal fine. But those are, you know, you know, God knows how many Amway people, how many Mary Kay people, and in my opinion, a lot of network marketing companies are saturated with a lot of distributors. But most of the people who get, you know, join a network marketing group, they don't get a business license. You know, because if you're selling stuff out of your garage, you know, in most places you do need a peddler's license. And once again, it's typically a nominal fee. You know, $100 or less. Some places it might be $25. You know, but once again, reparations within plain sight. There's a lot of opportunities out here that people, I guess they can't see it because, you know, they're thinking, well, if you can make money at this, how come how come everybody is not doing it? And that's how a lot of these people become billionaires. They just take something. I mean, look at hair. Look at black hair care products that are sold in black communities. You do have some black companies, I think Proline out of Dallas, if they're still in business, Proline out of Dallas, Johnson Products out of Johnson Products out of Chicago. I think they sold the company and they went public. But John H. Johnson, the late John H. Johnson with Ebony Fair Products, I think they still might be sold. Dudley Products out of North Carolina. Then a lot of little small boutique, but a lot of those businesses were easy to get into in the start because there was very little competition. There might be a little regulation now, or even when they started, but it wasn't. You know, nobody's holding Senate hearings. They weren't making mass roundups. You do hear of occasionally, like African braiders, they might get arrested because they haven't picked up a license in their local jurisdiction. But typically, that's in your larger cities. And even in your larger cities, 75%, at least in the black community, 75% of the hair that's done, African braids or whatever, is done in somebody's home. And typically regulators are not busting in. I haven't heard of anybody busting in anybody's home and making an arrest. If you got a storefront, different story. But so reparations within, it's so much opportunity. We'll cover it. You know, you don't have to have your sights on becoming a billionaire or even a millionaire, but if you want to start a home-based business where you have little or no competition, I recommend reading the book, The Blue Ocean, and studying billionaires, because a lot of them, when they started, because a lot of them, like Joseph Kennedy, they made their money one way in an unregulated field, and then when they got to a certain position, then they became community-oriented, civic-minded, and they got in positions where they got involved with the rule-making process, and then to protect their turf. Let's protect their turf. But anyway, there's loads of reparations within plain sight, but it's going to be you're going to have to be a self-starter, and because if you wait on the government, which is highly regulated, you might not live long enough to get those reparations. In any event, happy 4th of July for people that are out there, and typically we buy something, if not on the 4th of July, the day before the 4th of July. Last week we bought an additional 3 acres for another campus, but we'll report on that later. Let's see, 314, your mic is open.
What do you say, Ellie? Continuation from yesterday. Yeah.
Huh?
I say we're continuing from yesterday on the issue.
Yeah.
Subtopic.
He's not around today, but he brought it up, and I figured, well, there's a lot of things within plain sight, but you're not going to get it from the government. You have to go out and get it.
I was thinking about some things. I don't know if they have it in your city where you have these bicycles, and they have a GPS control lock on the back wheel, and you can swipe your card in them and your credit card in them, and have a certain period of time to ride any place you want, and leave it wherever you want.
Okay, now I know in D.C. They've got that at the train station, Union Station. You go outside the Union Station, and there's a bike rack right there. That just like you said, I didn't know they had GPS on it, but that makes sense.
Yeah, they do, because actually there's two companies here in St. Louis. One has lime color, green and yellow, then the other is all yellow. And they have bikes everywhere. And they have people, some employees that drive around in a van, I guess, and pick bikes up that's been left in out-of-the-way location, even alleys or in the park. So that there is business right in front of you. I'll tell you another thing. If you really want to get adventurous, build small resorts in some African countries. Like Zambia, for instance, would have many scenic spots, from natural spots, waterfalls, and the ability to go on short safaris. You would have to transport some transportation buses there for your clients, whereas they can travel from location to location. You have to hook up with an airline, because some of the locations are going to be beyond what individuals would want to sit in the bus. And you build some small accommodations with a restaurant. It's just unlimited.
Yeah, that's true. Matter of fact, speaking of which, it's they have a lot of these tiny house workshops all over, year round. And one that I attended up in Vermont, it's off the grid up in Vermont. And what I was thinking was, it is interesting that nobody has organized a transportation system where, you pick people up. When people are paying their fee to go to these workshops or conventions, wherever they have them with the tiny house thing, just that market alone, you can set up a transportation system. Because, like say, some of these places, I carpooled with people when I flew in or took a train in. But the organizers of those things, like I say, they have a lot of these things, and out of the way, off the grid places, and it would be very convenient. It's another profit center if they would, say, all right, we're going to have a bus that goes from here to there, and because even when you get to the location, they have places where you can camp, but some people don't want to camp. They're cabins with, running water, all that. So there's a lot of opportunity.
People on tours, they don't usually stay in those accommodations. They only use them for sleeping and refreshing themselves. And then the next morning they come down to the restaurant and eat breakfast. Then at a certain time they board the tour bus and they head off on their day's venture. After they stay in that one location for a period of time, then they may get on a plane or a bus for a short duration, but a plane for a longer duration, and they go to a location in the country, take on the scene that location has to offer. So there's a lot that can be made in those countries. A person hook up with some tour companies here in the United States, or even have church groups combinations where one group go one year, the next group go the next year, so on, so on, so on. It could be as many as 12 groups a year, or maybe even a little less, because you figure it's going to take a month to go, stay, see, and come back. That's going to take up a good month, and then you prepare for the next one. So it could be a continuation. It could be very profitable. Another thing, too, is that the establishment of research and development facilities in some historical black colleges and universities. Now, if I'm not mistaken, there may be one or two, maybe more. Do you know of any?
I don't know of any, but that's an excellent idea because there's a lot of history. I haven't been to the African American Museum in D.C. yet, and I've just looked at what they have online. But there's a bunch of stuff just in Oklahoma. In my opinion, that should be in there, but, you know, and other places, because Pleasant was telling me about a couple of black towns in Illinois, and there are probably more that we don't know about, and then even Missouri. So, but I don't know how they have that set up yet. What are some possible reparations in plain sight opportunities in St. Louis?
Well, I haven't gave that no consideration. I had made a little list of some things that had came about conversation before, but I haven't really gave that any look. I tell you another thing that would be good. You know, these African countries that have problems with trawlers that offshore that's fishing in their waters. Well, for some African American was to get a hold of some what do you call those boats? Coast Guard frigates.
Oh yeah,
and they can, they can go in contract with these countries to patrol offshore, and it has to have a little cannon on it, whereas they can chase off these frigates that's fishing in their waters unauthorized.
That is an excellent idea. I know in South Africa, you have certain subdivisions. They have their own security force and team, there to protect property against squatters or things of that nature. But yeah, there's a lot of there's infinite, and you can't take advantage of it all.
No, you can't. There's so many opportunities out there.
Yeah,
you know, for manufacturing if a person wanted to, in distribution, especially shrimp boats down in the Gulf. Sponsor some of those black shrimpers down there using some antiquated boats. Sponsor them with a more up-to-date boat. At the same time, put a shrimp processing and freezing facility right there in the vicinity of where they come on shore, and then have a distribution trucking network that would take the package items from that location on into the interior of this country, hidden cities.
Let me ask you another question about St. Louis Metro. What has happened in Ferguson as far as redevelopment since the unrest they had there? What, about 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago?
Back in 2014. Well, those buildings
Mike
that was
Brown.
damaged. Yeah, those buildings that was damaged have been rejuvenated. The Quick Trip, they gave that land to the Urban League, and they have since put a new facility up that's engaged in training and providing other services. And I can't see of anything else that have came out of it. They had training for, they had a program, a North County Cooperative, and I don't know if Ferguson is in that or not, where several municipalities came together and they formed a one police force, and that police force is recruiting from local high schools and trying to utilize the people that those communities consist of. You still have your poverty though. You know, that's something that's something that's kind of difficult to get at, because that really spurs off all the way from when that child first goes to school, and they having these all one size fit all academic systems, and they are not targeting, just like what we just got through mentioning, areas that are lucrative, areas where you got foreigners coming in and targeting, and the people in the very community where these opportunities exist aren't really being a presence. So
that's one thing that fascinates me. People that is usually the people that don't live in the city or from that city or area, they recognize the opportunities that the locals don't. Just like you take a place like Detroit, most of the people you got people from Australia, all over the place buying in Detroit. Some are they've probably been burnt by now, but there's a lot of foreign investment that's been going in that place probably for the last 18 years.
Well, yeah, you got an Asian in the St. Louis area that bought up about a couple hundred homes that he's written out.
Now,
that's what they do.
What about? Because I haven't been to St. Louis since the 70s. I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, like the people that, well, let me ask you one question. In St. Louis, can you find any black entrepreneurs that have a convenience store or sell black hair care products in the hood?
No, not no convenience stores. Blacks don't fool with that stuff no more. The of what we call Arab speakers, although we may be designating them wrong, but for the common acceptance of a word, those Arab speakers are taking that over, and also the selling of the hair care products. And what they do, they have a little system where it's duplicated, just like McDonald's restaurants. And all the components, the shelves, the products, the location within that floor space, well, they put it together like a little package. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So this store has package number B. Package number B consists of combs, curlers, rollers, and package number B goes right here. And that's repeated on and on throughout the whole store, even not only the floor space, but also the wall space too. So that's how they go about compiling the inventory for any location. They also do the same thing with the stock in the back. And by doing that, you know what these packages consist of. I'm just using that as a for convenience. You know what's consistent in these components, and that way it's easy to price. And you can send off that component list to a manufacturers, and you know exactly what type of prices that you're looking for. All you need is the building space. Also, a building space for in those states where they're opening up to marijuana production.
Oh, okay.
And leasing them out.
All right. Now, you
lease
were
with option to buy.
at one time? Were you
No, what I was
doing?
I worked to help a community write some building ordinance and building codes and things like that. I also sat on a police commission for a little bit.
All right, because I was thinking, what an opportunity in a lot of the urban areas. I guess some people might put it under the category of housing inspector, but I would tweak it to, because there's a lot of small landlords and new landlords that don't know anything about code enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can make a business if you have that kind of experience, knowing how local, how housing works and zoning and all this other stuff. Because I know in places like D.C., Baltimore, you can probably make a good living at it if you pick up just a handful of things.
Yeah, you can be a client.
How to guide them through an inspection.
Mm-hmm.
Once they've gotten written up, how to guide them through that so they can get through it quickly.
Well, what we used to do, we used to have a checklist, and in the checklist list the rooms and the spaces, interior, exterior, and we list the things that was deficient that need to have work done to them. Of course, we didn't recommend anyone to anybody, but they paid the fee, came out and done the inspection. We set up the data and the paperwork, whereas it could flow very easy and be easily trackable. And also we drew up ordinance to cite people for nuisance violation, Section 410. Practically every municipality has a nuisance violation. And you can use those nuisance violations not only to get people to cut their grass, but also you can get drug dealers out of your community with those nuisance violations.
As for because I had something in West Palm Beach some years ago, and the police use the landlords to get rid of the alleged drug dealers.
Mm-hmm.
I never asked the police directly. I said, well, if this first suspect, because I was just coming in, inspect, collect, run, and have something repaired. I was just thinking, because I never expressed to them. I said, well, if you know this person, why don't you arrest them? But they use the landlords basically to move out the drug dealers. And if you didn't move them out or evict them, they would shut you down, board up the whole building.
Yeah, you can declare the building a nuisance and also declare the building as being unsafe. You bring the health commissioner in and they do their thing, then all of a sudden now you got a building that but legally you can prevent human beings from living in, especially kids.
Right. Yeah, so that's a pretty interesting niche right there. People got involved with. Well, Pianki, that's
I tell you another business
yeah.
real quick too.
Mm-hmm.
Now I got a friend of mine. He's dead, but his son, he's not in too good a health shape right now. But he has a tunneling business, and he was working with the local sewage company.
Uh-huh.
And what he was doing, had the equipment to tunnels through rock, for storm drains and so on and so on and so on. They just go through the rock and cut a tunnel up to about 8 foot in diameter. And also they have smaller applications where if you got a sewer line, and depending on what type it is, like the old clay lines, which is about up to 10 inches, well, they could come in and spray a material that will form just like a insert inside the old sewer line, and basically rebuild it and put it back in operation again, where material can flow through it without being penetrated with tree limbs and weeds and so on and so on. So that there is a business, especially in cities where you have old infrastructure and it's cost prohibitive to replace. Well, that methodology, that technology exists.
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things out there. Reparations right at your feet, like you say, for those who want to get involved.
That's true. There is a lot of reparations at our feet. We got another caller. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick music interlude, and then we'll be back with our next call.
Okay.
You ready? Come on, man. We're going to party on this one. Come on now. You with me? All right. Let's go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
You know, sometimes I wonder what Martin Luther King would make of Martin Luther King's children these days. Yes, the King kids are at it again, back in court arguing with each other, this time over possession of their father's traveling Bible. That's the one that Barack Obama was sworn in on for his second inaugural, and which the president autographed, and Martin Luther King's Nobel Peace Prize from back 50 years ago.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest. But not only did they give the land, they built land grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. Now, this is what we are faced with, and this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
And those words are, well, hey, some people live for the first of the month to get their check. Which, hey, if that's your thing, that is your thing. Reparations within plain sight. Because that period of time that Martin Luther King was just talking about, there were African Americans that were on their own. They didn't wait on the government. Some of those people, they went out to Oklahoma, Texas, and other places and got land. Most of them bought it, but it was affordable. Some of them set up little businesses. What's this guy? Paps. What was his name? Paps Singleton. I forgot his first name. He helped a lot of the black folk relocate out to Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, setting up what he called, or what was labeled, black colonies. And some of those places still exist today. Now, let's see. Let's go to our next caller here, area code 410. Your mic is open.
Happy 4th of July to you, Brother L.A., and I hope you have a good celebration on our Independence Day.
I'm keeping quiet.
But anyway.
Don't go driving on the highway unless I have to.
Well, Brother L.A., I was sitting here listening to Brother Bianchi, and you sent me back to the plantation, so I told my master about him, and we were sending out the slave traders to come and get him since he realizes that slavery was a good thing. So we're going to bring him over here, and he can work with me to dig some potatoes and scrap corn, and he can get free housing and free food and free clothing. So if someone knocks on his door, I'll send some white boys to get him. But on the subject, you know what? You're right. Opportunity. And what's his name? Stephen Pheasant?
Pleasant.
I admire that gentleman because he always comes up with the right answers when we have conversations like this. And the thing is, you're right and Brother Bianca's right. Opportunity is within plain sight. It's right under our feet and we don't know it. And I would like to throw something out there along with all the suggestions that President Stephens and Brother Bianca and you threw it out there yesterday. I listened to your podcast last night. Look,
okay,
we don't have to get out here and jump through hoops, and we don't have to study billionaires and millionaires. All we need to do is supply our needs. And I think I talked to you about this before. Food, clothing, shelter, transportation, and health care.
Yeah, man. I got those in my phone. I
yeah,
got them.
and
I got all 5 in my phone. I got them.
yeah, and I'm working on a project, and the thing is, I think we're going to get the funding for it. And I know you and Bianchi and Pleasant Stephens is familiar with this concept. Have you ever heard of anchor organizations and anchor stores?
I heard of the concept of anchor store. Like in a shopping center, you got like something like a Albertsons or a known grocery store. That's the way I've heard of it in the context I've heard of an anchor store. Okay.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, look, there's 3 things that draws people to a particular area. That's where they buy their food at and buy their medicines at. And some stores combine those 2 retail outlets in the same building. Well, the thing is, you know and I know, in every city and every black community we go in, there are food deserts and there are retail deserts. And who buys more clothes, more sneakers, and more food than we do? Today I was out in front of the Walmart, and you should have saw our people loading up the hot dogs and hamburgers and everything else for cookouts and the beer and everything else. And the other thing is, I don't know if you drive or not, but look, last time I got under the wheel, my car needed some gas. And the thing is, all we have to do is get together and find out who is willing to sacrifice an amount of money a month in our neighborhoods to finance those things that we use on a daily basis. Look, the Koreans have already figured it out. Chinese figured it out. The Arabs have figured it out. And we sitting on our butts and we looking at our money just go right out the damn neighborhood because we don't have the leadership to go in and say, well, look, you're already generating enough money in our neighborhoods to do it. Reverend Chicken Wing every Sunday is taking up enough money to go in instead of putting that money in the Durham Bank and creating a venture capital fund to go in and finance our communities. And the first thing we need to do, and look, you correct me if I'm wrong, and if Brother Pionk is listening, I want him to chime in on this too. I know you got to go. The first thing that black communities need to do is put up a credit union. And all of the money that they collect on Sundays, put that money in a credit union or venture capital fund for those that want to do it. Now, those that don't want to do it, let them stay by the wayside. But ask those people that want to do it to put a certain amount of money a month in an institution to go in and finance those things we need. That's all we got to do, Brother L.A. It's not a hard thing. You know, common sense is not hard. It's just that it's hard for some people to use common sense. And the thing is, we got it. Instead of us sitting here talking, now I'm putting these people to the task. You know, I went to all of the Million Man marches. I went to the march there in the UN and everywhere else. And the thing is, we know that black people are out here waiting to do something. They just don't have the leadership that guides them in the right direction. And the thing is, if we use those 5 principles, we don't have to worry about jobs. We don't have to worry about anything else. But now I'm going to give you this, and we'll talk about this later. I'm for doing self-help, but I'm not going to let that white boy off the hook about slavery either. So, you know, I ain't going to get into the argument with you because you know how I feel about it. But the thing is, those 5 things that we can do will bring what we need, and it'll lead us in the manufacturing and food processing. Because, look, over here where I'm at, we raise hogs, we raise cattle, and we raise chickens. And we can produce our own food here if we have the mind and the will to do what we're supposed to do. And I'll get off and let you talk.
Before you, am my line still open?
Yeah, your line's open. Yeah, you comment.
Yeah, before you go, I want to comment on a couple of those things. Sure. And you didn't listen to our conversation yesterday on the issue of reparations when we made mention that blacks may owe reparation to African countries because one of the things that happened when you had these hordes these wars that was going on between these ethnic groups, and I use the word tribe, where they went in, killed, burned, stole cattle, and so on, so on, so on. And when they was caught, if they didn't have the money to pay, of course, they got sold in order to raise the money to pay for the damages that they'd done. And those that were sold and came over, they was an ancestor to some lineage today. So the way we like to say, I hear us blacks say that your ancestors profited off of slavery. Well, African countrymen say, well, you owe us because your ancestors destroyed what we had here, killed, plundered, and so on and so on. No one has never looked at that, but it does exist. And on that issue about the credit union, there are black credit unions in some cities. They work under the rules and regulations of any credit union in order to get a charter from the states to where they are to start. And forming a consortium is what you're talking about, consortium that provides the working capital and the seed capital for a venture. But that has to have members of that consortium that's underwriters that look at what it is that these individuals that comes to them wanting to get money and see what it is that they're talking about doing. Then you have to have somebody that work alongside of them in some capacity to make sure that these milestones and goals are being met, because you're responsible for the people's money that's in the consortium that's lending it out for this, for this project.
Yeah, and well, you're right. There's some credit unions out there already, and then I guess I'll have to do a podcast on this. These are people that make micro loans. I see his face right now. Just his name escapes me. Out of India, and they even do it in Africa. These little micro loans, but they're all business based. There's, we're not talking about loans to buy clothes or go on vacation or nothing like that.
Right. A lot of problems you have with these type of getting involved in these type of ventures, that the person that's taking them on is not using good business sense. You're supposed to pay your creditors before you pay you, and many times you go without being paid at all. Because when you mess up somebody's money, that puts a bad, sour taste in people's mouth, and they don't want to get involved with it no more. So if you had a bank, I hear them talking about black banks. A black bank, if you want to call it that, is not going to operate under any less scrutiny than any kind of bank, whether it's quote-unquote white, Asian. There are some. The Somalis have a developmental bank there in Minnesota that's ran by way of the rules of Sharia. In Chicago, they got Devon Bank that's been there for quite some time. It's also a Sharia-operated bank. So, but they still have to comply to government regulations, financial regulations.
Yeah, the Sharia.
Brother LA.
Yeah, go ahead, Kai.
Look. I don't think the brother was listening when I was talking. When I said the credit unions, I also mentioned a venture capital fund that was a community venture capital fund. Venture capital funds do have some regulations, but it's when a group of people get together, compile their money together, and set out a limited amount of goals. Now, the thing is, when I said this, I didn't say this like it's run like, the regular hustle deals. It's gonna be formulated under LLC. And the thing is, here's the other thing. I don't give a flying flip about what happened in Africa and paying those people back. Look, if they can go back that far and figure out that one of my ancestors damaged some property over there and they sold me because we damaged the property, albeit I ain't got time for that kind of feces. The deal is this. I ain't gonna get into the reparations thing because look, if we go in and we do what we're supposed to do, if we want to pursue it, we'd have enough money to pay those people back if they can find out who the hell we are. Because look, we don't go by Abdullah and what's his name, Kunta Kinte and all of that crap. If they can figure that out, then you let me know. I'm dealing with what needs to be done right now. And that is, we need jobs, we need businesses in our neighborhoods. And the thing is, if it's organized right, we don't have to worry about complying with the regulations. We can do that. We got people that has been in these particular fields that we can lean on them to organize us right. And that's what I'm going to do here. And the thing is, I think I got an open invitation to ULA to see how this thing goes. But the thing is, yes, we know.
All right. Oh man,
hey, look, I see you done flipped the lights. You're ready to go. But all I'm saying is this:
no.
We can come up with all kinds of scenarios.
I was trying to open up my mic, and it wouldn't. It got written some crazy things. So then I pressed another button, and it played the end music. Anyway,
but look.
So,
I'm going to finish this here. And look, I'm not going to get into a pissing match with somebody. But look, we know, look, Jesus said, hey, look, when you go to take over a strong man's house, you consider the cost. Don't think that we haven't taken all of this into consideration, okay? I mean, all of these things you point out is all well and good. But the thing is, look, when we started out on this thing, we knew what we had to do. And it's got to be done right because, look, black folks can ill afford to be gypped out of their money anymore. So, I'm going to let that go, man. I'm through.
The LLC idea, I know somebody in Asia, what they were doing was, this was on the village level, where everybody knew everybody. So
yeah,
when they had a collection meeting and somebody owed money and so-and-so didn't show up, it was like peer group lending. So you would be under peer group pressure to make sure that money was paid back.
I mean, we have rules and regulations on this thing on how it's going to go. Look, the one thing that we don't do is organize, and we don't organize to make sure that the thing is done right. So, I appreciate the brother's comments and everything, but look, don't think that we haven't taken all of this into consideration. I mean, that's just the way it goes, okay? And look, I hope you have a brilliant 4th of July.
You too. I hope you have that, man, as well. Everybody, Bianchi, everybody else. And on that note, I'm going to end it for today. We'll be back tomorrow. Everybody have a good, safe day.